Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar dedicated to LNG storage tank insulation, with a specific focus on CRYOLENE, the Saint-Gobain dedicated insulation range for cryogenic application. Today, cryogenic storage tanks are becoming increasingly critical asset in the global energy landscape, and insulation plays a much more strategic role than it may appear at a first glance. By the end of this webinar, you will have a clear understanding of how the CRYOLENE range, and particularly CRYOLENE 682 resilient blanket in long roll format, can support the design, the construction, and long-term performance of LNG storage tanks operating at cryogenic temperatures. My name is Fabien Kervéadou. I'm International Market Manager Industry at Saint-Gobain Technical Insulation, and I'm very pleased to welcome you today for this webinar. Before we dive into the technical topics, let me briefly introduce Saint-Gobain Technical Insulation. We operate across 4 key technical markets: industry, marine and offshore, HVAC, and OEM, delivering high-performance insulation solutions worldwide. We combine a global reach with 𝗖𝗥𝗬𝗢𝗡𝗡 brand and a strong local presence with local teams and production sites in many regions. Our portfolio covers a wide range of insulation technologies, including glass wool, stone wool, ultimate, and elastomeric foams, allowing us to address very diverse and demanding applications. So now it's time. Let's move to today's topic. This webinar is structured into 3 main parts. First, we'll start with an LNG market overview to understand why cryogenic storage tanks is such a strategic topic today. Then, we will look, especially with Elodie, at the technical challenges of the LNG tank insulation, focusing on what really matters from a design, safety, and long-term perspective. Finally, we'll introduce the CRYOLENE range with a specific focus on the 682 CRYOLENE resilient blanket in long roll format, which again represent a key differentiation in the market. We'll keep time, of course, at the end for a live and Q&A session, so please feel free to type your question directly in the LinkedIn comments, and now it's time to start. So, Elodie, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself in few words?
Yes, of course. Good morning, everybody. I'm Elodie Taboulot. I'm the LNG Key Account Manager for Saint-Gobain 𝗖𝗥𝗬𝗢𝗡𝗡, France.
Now let's try to set the scene, and let's try to answer why is LNG storage capacity are becoming such a strategic topic today. The LNG market today increasingly relies on physical infrastructures, not only on gas flow. Terminal and LNG storage tanks are becoming really strategic assets to ensure security of supply, flexibility, and long-term energy resilience. LNG play also a significant role in the global energy mix, both to support the growing energy demand and to push the transition toward low-carbon solutions. At the same time, emerging market and geopolitical dynamics are driving strong investment in energy infrastructures in regions such as Europe, of course, the Middle East, and the US. Onshore LNG storage tanks are long-term assets that are typically designed for 40 years or more of operation, and in this context, thermal performance and safety are not optional, they are key design drivers. Large LNG projects often include multiple full containment tanks, usually above 160,000 cubic meters each, which means really large insulated surface and very demanding installation conditions. So looking towards 2030, LNG supply growth will continue to drive the need for new storage capacity worldwide. According to some publication from the EIA, around 40% of the new LNG export capacity is expected to be added by the end of 2030. This will be led mainly by the US and Qatar, driving a major new wave of LNG capacities. In this context, insulation plays a strategic role as directly impacting the operational efficiency, safety, and durability and lifetime cost. So the question becomes, how do we build LNG tank faster, safer, and more efficiently while guaranteeing decades of reliable performances? And now, Elodie, let me ask you the first question. From your perspective, what makes LNG storage tank such a demanding environment from an insulation point of view?
Okay, an LNG tank is a highly complex structure. It's made of double containment system, an inert steel tank, an outer concrete wall, and a high performance insulation in between. You know that in LNG tank, the temperature is down to minus 164 degrees, which is very low, and you need to keep it this way if you don't want your LNG to go back to gas. Depending on the insulation or where the insulation is located in the tank, you will have specific requirements. For instance, at the bottom of the tank, you will need to have an insulation that will combine both a high performance from a thermal point of view and also a high mechanical strength, because it fully supports the weight of the LNG even when it's full and the inner tank. So you will need to have a very strong insulation material such as cellular glass. On the other hand of the tank, so on the suspended deck, well, the priority will be for the insulation to be, of course, efficient, but also lightweight, because in this case, the lighter, the less hanger you can put. And for those purposes, the glass wool is perfectly suited for this application. Now the most complex area is in between, because in fact, in the wall, this is where you have different criteria, because between the inner steel tank and the outer concrete, you've got one tank that will move depending on when you fill in and when you empty the LNG. So this inner steel tank will move a lot, and those tank wall movements should not affect either the insulation nor, of course, the concrete wall, which cannot move on the outside. So really, in this wall place, you need to have an insulation that will be, of course, efficient from a thermal point of view, but that will also need to have a high resiliency. Another point is that this annular space in between both tanks is very wide. So you have like 1 meter thick, and you need to insulate the wall height and the wall thickness of this annular space continuously in order to avoid the thermal bridges. So for this, that is to say that you need to have an insulation system that will be easy to install, to have an uniform filling of the space and a long-term dimension stability. To have those performances, you have a combination of two types of insulation products. First type, close to the inner tank, the inner steel tank being the resilient blanket, such as a glass wool resilient blanket, and the other insulation material would be the expanded perlite. And with this combination, you can really ensure thermal efficiency and mechanical resilience over the entire lifetime of the LNG tank. After, if we just have a step back, of course, in the middle of everything, the insulation needs to keep the cryogenic condition, so it needs to keep the temperature very low. So it needs to have a very high thermal performances. But it's not only about keeping the cold in the insulation. The insulation also plays a role on different topics. One of the topics is, and you probably already have an idea about it, is the mechanical and structural constraint. Because large tanks are subject to thermal contraction and expansion. Insulation must absorb movements without cracking or losing performances. Long-term resiliency is very critical. So, and that's where also the insulation and especially the resilient blanket plays a role. Another topic where insulation also needs to be considered because it is critical for the LNG tank, it's safety and regulatory requirements. LNG tanks are critical assets. So that means that insulation should not only insulate, but it should also, and it will also contribute to fire protection and system integrity. And of course, something we should not play with is that the product should comply with the strict international standards in mandatory. I will not tell you that.
We have to.
Another topic is that when we build an LNG tank, well, it's years and years for the building, and of course, it's built for decades of operation. you need to have an installation that will be consistent and that will be performant over time. Because if you have an installation failure, then it will be difficult and very costly to repair. So that means that the performance of the insulation, of the whole insulation system, should be guaranteed from the day one to the end of life of the tank. The last topic, where insulation also plays a role and the design of the insulation chosen plays a role, is about the installation challenge, because LNG tank, as said, they are very big tank. So the installation needs to be as easy as possible and needs to comply with all the installation phase from for a LNG tank, in order to make sure that the installation will be well installed and that it will after make its role and perform well over the years.
So Elodie, first question, but there will be many more. Given all these constraints you just mentioned, could you tell us more about the insulation range of 𝗖𝗥𝗬𝗢𝗡 as developed for this cryogenic application for tanks, and how we manage to address those challenges?
Okay. You already understood that depending on where the insulation is located, you will have local thermal and mechanical constraints that are different. And that's why CRYOLENE range has 3 different types of products, depending really on where it will be put in the LNG tank. For instance, the CRYOLENE 681 is used for suspended deck and has been designed for suspended deck, because for this place in the wall, in the tank, you really need to have a lightweight and efficient solution which will minimize loads while ensuring high thermal performances. On the other hand, as you understood, on the walls, you have other challenges regarding mechanical performances. So of course, we still need to be high with a high thermal properties and high insulation properties, but you also need, and that's really the key for the resilient blanket, a high resiliency in order to enable to absorb the movements, the cyclic movements of the inner steel tank during filling and emptying operations. And after, our last CRYOLENE, which is the CRYOLENE 684, is made for pipe connections. And this CRYOLENE combines flexibility and mechanical robustness, ensuring reliable performances while accommodating thermal contraction, mechanical stresses, and installation constraint. So really what you need to keep in mind is that we have in the CRYOLENE portfolio 3 types of CRYOLENE, and each type of this CRYOLENE has been designed depending on the specific constraint that occur in the LNG tank. And that's why our CRYOLENE portfolio is structured this way.
I told you I have more questions. So one more specific one, it's about the 681. So what are the specific constraints of the suspended deck in an LNG tanks? And how does this CRYOLENE 681 address those, again, challenges?
Okay, so if you focus on the CRYOLENE 681, the one dedicated to the suspended decks, you have really 3 main properties, 3 key properties that you should have. First one, and we already said it, it's of course excellent thermal conductivity. Because on the suspended deck you will have only this insulation material, so you need to be able to reach the right thermal resistance to make sure that the thermal properties will be alright and that you will have no thermal breaches. Secondly, the lightweight. In fact, the lighter you will be, the less weight there will be, and then the less hanger you can put on your suspended deck. And this is where it's becoming interesting. And in fact, with the density of only 12 kilograms per cubic meter, this insulation material is the lightest of the CRYOLENE, and it's also one of the lightest of the insulation material that exists on the world. Third, the third point is of course the low settlements, because as said before, the insulation of the suspended deck is done with only CRYOLENE 681, and for this you put on top of each other several layers of CRYOLENE 681. So if you put 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 layers of CRYOLENE 681, then you will keep the total thickness the same as the sum up of each thicknesses. That means that if you put 5 layers of 100 millimeters of CRYOLENE 681, that at the end you will have half a meter, so 500 millimeters of CRYOLENE 681 for the insulation. But at some point, when you do add some extra layers, you will have some settlements. For instance, when you add 12 layers of 100 millimeters, you don't have at the end 1.2 meters, but you have 1 meter of insulation material. So you have a settlement of roughly 16%. If we take an example, for a tank of 72 meters diameter, then having a 1 meter thick cryolene after settlement will lead you to a thermal resistance of 66 meters square Kelvin per watt. And this for a total insulation weight below 50 tons, because the insulation weight will be about 49 tons, which is very interesting. One thing I didn't say before, but cryolene is made of glass wool. So of course it's mainly mineral based. If we have a look just at the fire reaction, and this is for cryolene 681, so for the suspended deck, but also for all the cryolene range. Of course, when you have an insulation material which is mainly made of an inorganic material, then the fire reaction is very good. We have two types of products, one with a glass veil facing, one with an aluminum facing. If we look at the cryolene 681 for the suspended deck with the glass veil facing, then you will have the fire reaction A1. And regarding ASTM, because we do have ASTM for fire reaction, the flame spread index is 0, like the SMOD index, the SMOD develop index is also 0. And after let's say we lose a bit when we put the aluminum foil facing, because in this case we are for the fire reaction A2 is 1 D0. We keep the develop index for the smoke at 0, and we have the flame spread index at 25 at 25.
So, thank you, Elodie. I think I have my answer for the 681. So now let's go for the 682, because we heard about this resilient blanket, this long roll format. So what does it really change compared to the conventional insulation system with a roll which are of course 20 meters or even less?
Well, it changed everything for the tank consumption and also for the person on the job site. But first, just a small brief. So in Isover, we had the long roll for the resilient blankets. So for the cryolene 682, we had them produced in our plant in South Korea for more than 8 years now. And since last year, we have them produced in our plant in France, in Chalon-sur-Saône. So back to your question. In fact, having some long rolls, it does change fundamentally everything, and it does change the way of insulation and the way the insulation is installed on LNG tanks. Because by supplying the resilient blankets in long roll up to 40 meters, knowing that the tank height can be 40 meters, well, this allows in just one layer to cover the full height of the tank. And this has a lot of very good consequences, because at the end it's significantly less joints. So that means faster installation and better insulation. This means also less manpower, because you won't have to do some sewing or things like that. And less manpower, it's also reducing risk, because the installation is simplified and the handling is also reduced. And at the end, it's also an optimized logistic with less deliveries. So we did, in fact, we did improve by having those formats for the rolls going up to 40 meters, and we kept our other performances the same way. For instance, we still have a high resiliency. We comply with the method SNCMP, which were developed with the tank design entrepose, and after with the tank design experts entrepose. If you used to use another method, please tell us, and we can definitely make some tests on our resilient blankets. We of course still have an excellent thermal conductivity. So for this time, at minus 150 degrees, our lambda value is 13 milliwatts per met Kelvin. So that means that if you have 3 layers of 100 millimeters for the resilient blanket, so 300 millimeters of resilient blanket, you will have a thermal resistance of 23 meters square per Kelvin per watt. And at the end, it's not a surprise, we're still mineral based for all the cryolene, so of course we are still very good. A bit better for cryolene 682 with the glass veil than with the aluminum foil. but still we are A1 or A2 DS1 D0. And regarding ASTM certification, for the smoke development index, we are always 0. And after, we keep the 0 for the glass veil regarding the flame development and flame spread development index. And we are this time at 35 for the flame spread index for the facing, for the cryoline with the facing aluminium.
Elodie, I'm certain there is other advantage on the cryolene range. So could you share the other benefits, and not only the one you just mentioned, please?
Yeah, well, in fact, you already have quite a lot. But what's sure is that, and it's been mentioned before, we really need to make sure that the products that will be installed in LNG tank are reliable and of course fits with all the mandatory requirements and the regulations. In addition to all of that, we of course have certification. We have the CE certification, mainly for Europe, and we are in progress with the ASTM certification. As you've seen, we have already some results regarding fire reaction. We already have the results regarding corrosion, and everything is all right. We passed the standards, and we're looking for some more results over the coming month. From a safety point of view, our fiber formulation are compliant with the USEB and the RAL certifications. And after, regarding sustainability, one other big strength of the glass fiber is that you can have, with this type of material, you can really have a closed loop regarding recyclability. And the plant in France, Chalon-sur-Saône, who is making cryoline, is working with more than 80% of recycled glass content in their production. So that means that in cryoline, you have at least 80% of glass which is a recycled glass, so which is recycled content. In addition, because to transport our cryoline products, which are rolls, we put some PE wrapping, so plastic wrapping around it. And we also started to introduce some recycled content, so PE recycled content in our wrapping. And today we are at 30% of recycled PE in our wrapping.
One of my last questions.
Sure?
Sure, I'm sure. Why cryoline is a reliable reference on the cryogenic insulation markets for tanks?
Well, it's reliable, and it has its position because it's also one of the oldest. I know some of you already know cryoline, and some of you use it. I know some of you also just discover it. What I really would like to insist on is that cryoline, it's a proven solution. It's a proven technology that has been developed more than 40 years ago, that has been improved, that has been installed in more than 40 different countries. You now have the map here. In more than 200 tank projects. It is reliable. It is a reliable solution. And this really means a lot when it deals to LNG that will operate for decades. So please, if you have any questions or if you want to discuss about cryoline, feel free to contact us.
So let's try to close the session, but before that I would like to leave you with 3 key takeaways from today's session. So first, cryoline is a system approach. It's not just about a single product. LNG tanks are complex, as mentioned by Elodie, and each area has a specific constraints. We have seen that with the suspended deck, the fluctuation for the walls. But we have 3 dedicated products: the CRYOLENE 682, the resilient blanket for the tank walls, the CRYOLENE 681 for the suspended deck, and finally the 684 for the pipes connection. Those 3 products allow engineers, EPC, and owners to address performance, safety, and durability in a consistent and coherent way across the whole tank design. Second, the long roll concept, which is a real differentiation on the tank walls. With those rolls up to 40 meters long, we can cover the full height of the tank. We drastically then reduce the number of joints. This means better thermal continuity, fewer thermal bridges, and more stable long-term performance. From an installation point of view, it also means faster, safer, and more repeatable installation, which is a major benefit on large LNG construction sites. And third, CRYOLENE is a solution ready for global LNG projects. It has already been proven on large-scale LNG references worldwide and support long-term performance, energy efficiency over the full lifetime of the tank. Cryolene is today positioned to meet both EN and ISTM. It has been explained clearly by Elodie, which is essential for international projects. In addition to our product, having 2 global production sites ensure reliable supply and efficient logistics for large LNG projects anywhere. So in short, Cryolene is not just about insulating LNG tanks, it's about securing their performance and reliability for decades.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you. So here I would like to show this map to show the contact detail of our 2 LNG specialists. Elodie is one of them, of course, and they are fully dedicated to supporting on the Cryolene range with production facility in both Europe and Asia, as you can see, and they ensure a global coverage and are available to answer any question you may have worldwide. Last but not least, I would like to share our very latest brochure about Cryolene, released just a few weeks ago, which summarizes everything we have discussed today. So feel free to scan the QR code or visit our Isover Technical Insulation website to access and download this brochure. And now I think it's time for possible questions we may have.
Yes, thank you very much, Elodie. Thank you very much, Fabien. Indeed, we do have some questions, and quite a lot, in fact. So I would start with the very first one that we had in the chat. So is Cryolene only for LNG tanks?
No, that's true that we mainly mention LNG tanks, but it's because it was made for LNG tanks. And LNG tanks are the most demanding tanks. But in fact, it can perfectly be used for other tanks other than LNG, other tanks with a low temperature liquid gas in it, such as ethylene, VAM monomers, or so on and so on.
Okay, thank you. Another question about the way it is installed. So are long rolls installed on the wall from top to down or from bottom to up?
Good question.
That's a good question. And the answer is very easy. Both can be done. So if you prefer, for some reason, to do up, bottom up or down, top down, you can. Cryolene tensile strength is perfectly suitable for both types of insulation. So just don't change your insulation type. It will just make it easier.
Yeah, I would say it mostly depend on the installation strategy they have locally, but they can, of course, install in both ways, let's say.
Exactly.
Okay. Another question also, really packaging. How the long rolls are packaged?
So to close the rolls, once they are rolled up in the plant, we put a PE wrapping around it, and after the rolls are put on a pallet. If the rolls have a width of 1.2 meters, then we put 2 rolls on a pallet on top of each other. And after, of course, there is a bit more PE just to secure everything. But as long rolls are quite heavy, we usually, they are heavy, that's true. Usually we put them on a pallet. If you have some other requirements, please ask us.
All right. Another one. So, what are the advantages of the advantages of Cryolene if we compare to other solutions like perlite, foam glass, and cryogel?
Well, they all have their advantages, but they are not for the same tank.
Parts of the tanks,
yeah,
exactly.
Part of the tank. If you look at foam glass, then it's really a matter of having a high mechanical strength. I mean, you can work on the foam glass, nothing will happen. You can put an LNG tank on top of it, nothing will happen. It's really a thermal insulation material which deals very well with the heavy weights, thanks to its high mechanical performances. After, if you look at perlite, well, what's great about perlite, especially expanded perlite, is that to fill in the annular space between both the inner tank and the outside concrete wall, then you just, and I will say it into bracket because it's not that easy, but you pour it. It's like when you fill with sand a bottle or a bucket to make a sandcastle. So the way of filling it, it's quite easy and it's still efficient regarding a thermal point of view. But you could not do the whole filling of the annular space only with perlite, because then the perlite would be crushed by the movement of the inert steel wall in steel tank. And the strength, but it's complementary really, of the resilient blanket, so like mineral wool with the chlorine 682, its strength is really to be resilient and to absorb the wall movement.
Exactly.
And in fact, why we put those material at those places, so whether only foam glass on the bottom, mineral wool plus expanded perlite for the walls, and mineral wool on top, it's really because they have different product properties which suit the most for the local thermal and mechanical constraints.
Yeah, I will just add one word. Keep in mind the strength of the CRYOLENE range is fire reaction, there are lightweight products, as we mentioned, the resiliency and the thermal performance. They are really the key strengths of the CRYOLENE range, which make this solution really the perfect one for the tank design.
Mm.
Thank you very much for this complete answer. You have some more questions about the cost. How much is the cost per square meters with this type of insulation?
There is always a matter of cost. Honestly, to answer you, you will have to come back to me, because then we need to check if you have the right CRYOLENE. And after, it will also depend on the quantity that will be ordered. So sorry, but it's not a...
But they have all the contacts in the slide, and I'm sure there will be a replay, and the slide will be available. So you have all the contacts, so you can contact Elodie or even our colleague in South Korea.
Yeah. Yes, and I will put in a minute also the web form, so that people can just click and also get in contact. So that's a way. We have a request to get the technical data sheet of the product. So I guess they are all on the website. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Very easy. On the website, technical insulation, and you have a CRYOLENE. You have 3 product pages. One for the CRYOLENE 681. 682 and 684.
And the brochure also, which is available on the website.
Yeah.
And if you want to know more, please contact us.
Yes.
Always.
And I think that's the last question that I'm going to mention. So you mentioned Euroclass A1, A2, S1, D0. Which facing is used for each, and how do you choose between them?
Well, most of the time, for CRYOLENE, when you have a fire reaction A1, that means that the facing is a reinforced glass fiber. And when the facing is the reinforced aluminum foil, then you have a bit more organic, so that's why we are A2, S1, D0. Basically, the main differences between both is that when you have the CRYOLENE with the facing, which is glass fiber, it's cheaper. If we come back to the cost question. This is cheaper because the facing is cheaper. And if you go to the CRYOLENE with the aluminum facing, then the nice thing is that it looks nicer. So basically what usually is done, if I take the example of the suspended deck, all the layers of the bottom and middle layers that are put on top of each other are with CRYOLENE 681 glass veil, so the VV1, and the last layer is usually done with the CRYOLENE with the aluminum foil to have a nicer look.
So you avoid dust coming on the product and make it more clean, let's say.
Exactly. After, for information, the reinforced aluminum foil also could be waterproof, of course.
All right, so we still have some comments, in fact. So we have a comment from Mohamed that said that he would be interested in a comparison of the different type of insulation products. technical and commercial comparison he mentioned. So of course you would get in touch with him.
Yeah.
And then yes, a comment that's from Julian Torres that says that CRYOLENE is the better system. So I think you convinced them.
Okay, I think we can maybe conclude on this last comment. I don't know if there is any other question.
No, that was the last question. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
everyone for attending the webinar.
Yeah, and feel free to contact us.